For those of you who don't know me, I'm Libby Tedstone and I'm the National Extension Manager at Wine Australia. And thank you so much for joining us all tonight. And what we're talking about is basically grower and winemaker discussion groups, sometimes called communities of practice, but basically it's a model of peer-to-peer learning. And from discussions and research I've done across dairy and beef here in New Zealand, what they're seeing is adoption rates of basically up to 80% in these discussion groups. And it's amazing what you can do when you've got the power of a group all sharing their ideas, sharing their experience and knowledge, and actually working on a dedicated problem. And as you will know, there's nothing farmers love more than looking over the fence or walking around to the winery and seeing what the others are doing. And the moment they see progress, they like to go along and have a chat with them at the pub or wherever and find out, well, how have you done that? What's going on, etc. So we're keen to see how planting discussion groups amongst the regions can, if you like, be a catalyst for adoption and actually start building momentum. And it fits into part of the National Extension Advisory Strategy, adoption strategy, and it ties into the regional program, because ideally we'll be doing a lot of this through the regional program. So we're actually providing more impetus within the regions with what the growers and the winemakers of our regional partner associations want to pursue. And we'll also be using the National Advisor Network as much as possible to actually facilitate these groups. So they've got multiple parts of the extension strategy working together so that it is as coordinated as possible. And meanwhile, in the background, I'll also have a budget for developing more, if you like, off-the-shelf resources using extension providers like the AWRI and others to create resources that support these discussion groups and support the momentum that starts to build in the region. So it'll be a coordinated approach, all building off each other. Now, I would like to thank you for your patience. It has been a bit stop, start, and I apologise for that, just basically due to staffing issues and me being relatively new and stupid enough to start promoting it just before vintage. So that I've learned that. So thank you for teaching me that wonderful lesson. The good news is I've now contracted Beck Burgess, who has run these programs before in the northern beef areas of Queensland, Australia, obviously. And so she is going to be managing it from now on. So she will be liaising with those of you who want to go forwards and basically implementing it for me. So you are in safe hands. So at this point, I'm going to pass you over to Beck, and she's going to explain to you more about, well, what are these discussion groups? How do they work? What's the benefit of them? Why are they different from other sorts of just casual discussion groups? What if you want to get involved, then what's the commitment? What are the different roles? And then basically the next steps from there. And there'll be plenty of time to ask questions as well. So thank you very much, and I'll hand over to Beck.
Great. Thanks, Libby. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. And thank you guys for making yourselves available at 6 o'clock at night as well. So it's definitely not lost on that. And sorry about the technology issues that we seem to have. But anyway, we're all working now. So for those who I haven't met or don't know who I am, my name is Beck Burgess. I'm based at Langhorne Creek in South Australia. Not a grape grower anymore, but I do have a consulting business that I've had for about 5 years now. My background, however, has come from the dairy industry, which I still work in the dairy industry a little bit as well. I've worked in that industry for a little bit over 10 years, running discussion groups for the South Australian dairy industry. And then also what's happened is I've moved into a couple of different projects, predominantly up in Queensland. One of those is the Northern Beef Business Project, which is a peer-to-peer program that's rolled across the top end of Australia, where we brought together producers from all over on the peer-to-peer group discussion model, or farmer discussion model, farmer group, whatever you want to refer to it as, around bringing producers together. So my role in that project has been supporting the facilitators and the coordinators, and also doing a little bit of delivery as well. So we'll go in just a few things around kind of what a discussion group is or peer-to-peer group as we go through. But I also want to introduce Alice, who we'll hear from shortly. So Alice Marks, who you'll see there. Alice is a beef producer in Queensland. And I thought it was a really good opportunity to actually hear from a producer who is relatively new to the peer-to-peer group concept as a producer, and she's also been part of the EdB2 project that we've been running up in Queensland. So I thought it was just a really nice fit that you could hear from a producer about what they've got out of it. And it's still so new and fresh for Alice as well. So it's really timely to hear from her. So you'll also have an opportunity to ask Alice a few questions as well, but we're really grateful for Alice for jumping on board. And Alice, I will come to you very shortly. Okay, so just in regards to peer-to-peer groups, so as I say, you may hear them called peer-to-peer groups, discussion groups, producer groups. They're all one and the same. They're collectively around bringing producers to come together. They're leading the ideas on what they want to talk about, what are, I guess, the conversations that they're having. But ultimately, it's a way of bringing producers together so that they can collectively take back skills, knowledge, conversations back to their own business and learn from either their peers or also by bringing subject matter experts into those meetings. Depending on the model of each group may decide to meet either monthly, quarterly, 6 monthly, weekly, depending on what the group's needs are. But the most important part of that, it's not just the group coming together willy-nilly like we might do at field days or neighbour days and things like that. It's quite curated and led by a facilitator who's been given the skills and knowledge so that they can actually facilitate, one, the group itself, but also create an environment for growers to be involved in to ensure that they're also getting the skills and knowledge to take back to their own business. Okay, so my part and my role as part of this program is, yes, as project manager to support everyone who's part of it, but also as an expert in the field of facilitation and supporting and teaching facilitators and coaching and mentoring them on how to facilitate peer-to-peer groups well and really effectively so that producers are actually getting impact and benefits to take things back to their own business. Okay, does anyone have any questions just around that? Because it is quite different. And the wine industry, yes, has probably dabbled in it somewhat within your own regional areas, but probably haven't done what we term a true discussion group before. So I just want to make sure people do really understand the concept of what that looks like and the structure that we need to put around that to make them successful. Yep. Okay, so before I go into what the actual program will look like, I think it's really important.
Beck, there's just a question from
there
Mark
is Mark. My apologies, Mark. I missed your hand.
Sorry,
there.
Beck. You may just lean into it right now, but it was a bit about the structure you talked about.
Yes, absolutely, Mark. So
how the groups define.
Yeah.
What are the expected deliverables, and how do we measure success? I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mark, I guess there's a couple of ways. So I'm just going to share my screen, Libby, with this little infograph just to give some framework around it. And hopefully people can see that. I'll need a thumbs up, Libby, because I can't see much at the moment. Beautiful. So the framework that you see there is essentially what we're wanting to roll out for this program. So on the left-hand side there, you'll see number 1 is around that facilitation. So the facilitator is essentially, if you want to, for a better word, is the lead for this group. So what they will do, and I always say as a facilitator of discussion groups, you are essentially herding cats and bringing the people together. And I'm sure Alice will talk to this, but a good facilitator is the person that essentially makes the group continue on and makes them happen and keeps them active. So the role of that facilitator will be someone who builds trust and momentum within that group. They may likely already have a proven and really good relationship with growers already, or they may actually have a relationship with some active growers within their region who they can then draw other group members in. The facilitator is there to encourage the open conversation. They may link in with skills and knowledge and then pull in also subject matter experts. The facilitator also may and can at times also be the subject matter expert as well. So in the training, if that is to occur, we just make sure that we're quite certain on which hat we're wearing at the time. So if we're the subject matter expert for that group, or if we're acting in a facilitator capacity, and that will all come up as part of that training. Generally, facilitators could be advisors, service providers, those type of people within the industry. They're usually good people that we know that have the time commitment to be able to facilitate, but also have the connections and also capability to undertake some of that training that we require to ensure that they are good, proven facilitators. Additionally, with that facilitator, the group is supported by a coordinator, and that coordinator supports some of the doing with the group. So they support potentially booking a venue where the group is going to meet. They might help with some of the logistics on how the group meets. They might even support some of the recruiting on whom the group members are. It's really important that that coordinator, as part of that group who sits under the facilitator, is chosen by the group though, because you want somebody who's going to have a good relationship and I guess support that group come together as well. So you could nearly say pseudo facilitator, but they are very much in that coordination role. Okay. From a program support perspective, so Wine Australia, as it states there, will support the facilitators in the group. So they'll support the funding model and the funding attributed to each of the groups. They'll be providing the training and resources, which includes me training facilitators, coordinators, and also for me to come in and project manage the whole project. They're also providing funding to enable mentoring and coaching from myself and Jeanette Long, who's also part of the project as well. Okay, and then Wine Australia, some administrative support, again, via the project management that I'll undertake as well. Then on the other side of the infograph that you see there, and I know I haven't quite gone in order and there's some rationale behind this. The other 2 points there that we make is around the peer-to-peer learning we really want, and what we want those outcomes to be is that practical group setting environment. So we want it to be really practical learning. We want those outcomes to be things that growers can come to these events, workshops, get-togethers with their peers as either group meetings, farm walks, you might have guest experts come, or just general discussion which helps the individual solve problems within their business in a really safe, confidential way, but that is also open and transparent. And again, with the support of the facilitator. So it's not just a matter of chucking a bunch of information at our growers again. It's actually the link on here's some information, what support do you need, and how can we go and help you then go and implement that in your own business. The last piece then is just around the outcome piece. What I've placed there is obviously some more of those soft type skills, if you want to call them that, around the outcome. So we know that discussion groups and peer-to-peer groups enable that really stronger network. It's really pleasing to see this program actually be rolled out in quite a challenging time, because the great thing is there's no better time like a challenging time to try and bring people together. Okay, so I can actually see that as a real benefit. The other outcomes that we see and that we would obviously like from this project, but should naturally occur anyway, is around the improved practices of adoption. So taking those ideas, skills and knowledge and implementing them in their own business. Definitely a confidence in decision making. So not only making decisions in their own right, but we will now be creating a peer group so that we can develop those decisions, I guess, sounding boards for our own business, and then make them have true impact when we go and implement them at home. And then ultimately you would hope for better business outcomes, regardless of what that is for each and individual business. Probably the most important thing around all of this model though, is that the producers are the ones who actually lead what the learnings are and then lead that practice change and impact in their own business. But of course, through the structured support of the facilitator. Okay. Is there any questions just before I go on around what the 2 years then looks like? And hopefully, Mark, that answers your question as well. Yep. Libby, you'll have to let me know if there's questions because I can't quite see everybody.
Well, I've got a question. Do you mind if I just ask it first? So,
yeah, absolutely.
So my understanding when we were talking about this, just to build on Mark's question, is that as part of the process at the beginning, the groups will be identifying their own goals that they're trying to achieve, whether it be reducing emissions or improving soil health or decreasing spray costs or whatever it might happen to be. And they themselves will actually measure that. So one of the ways of measuring success is, well, have they made progress against the goals that they set out to achieve, which will be individual to their own individual businesses. And also from Wine Australia's perspective, what we want to get to is the fact that they have benefited so much from the experience that at the end of the 2-year pilot, they're prepared to put their hand in their pocket and actually keep paying the facilitator to keep the process going so that they can start working on other business problems. So that in itself is a measure of success. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Libby. And you're exactly right. And what we do for the facilitators is we provide in that first lot of training a good structure on how you can actually implement that with your first meeting with your group so that you can capture and create an environment so they can come together and do really good, robust planning. So they, as a group, both know what they want to achieve over the next 2 years, but also have their own accountability on what they want to achieve over the next 2 years as well. And as training the facilitators will support what that will look like in the training sessions.
Thanks, Beck. Got a question from Barry.
Thanks, Barry.
Hi, sorry. I'm not used to this platform, so it took me a minute to unmute.
That's okay.
I'm trying to understand the dynamic with growers and producers. I'm both.
Yep.
And is the intent that each group would have a mixture of both?
So it's very dependent, Barry, that's my poor sense of using the right terminology. My apologies, Barry. So I've been interchanging both producer and grower, so apologies about that for you. So it's a good check for me. But the dynamics of the group can be set by what the group wants, ultimately. Now, when speaking with Libby, the preference has probably been we have just grower groups and then we have producer groups as well. But if the two interchange, I guess my counsel to you is ultimately, what are you hoping to get out of that group by being part of it? And then the second thing would be around the rules of engagement when you come together as the group initially about setting those outcomes about what they are. Now, I think, Barry, you, without knowing you and your business and how you operate, if I had a great grower hat on, having a producer in the room could potentially add value from an end result about what I could potentially need to be thinking about when producing, in my actual business or growing the grapes in my business. So there could be some good conversations that come up when that group comes together as well. But that's something that ultimately the group needs to decide on what the backgrounds are of the group members that come together.
Yeah, since I wear both hats, I think I could learn and hopefully contribute to both growers and producers.
Yeah.
But so the groups could have objectives within the group that could either be grower focused or producer focused or both.
Correct. Absolutely. Okay. Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
And it's all around, Barry, setting up the rules as we talk about when the group first comes together to actually say, well, how are we going to work together? And if there is that mix, well, what are the hats we're actually wearing? And then what are the types of conversations and outcomes we ultimately want to get out of this group anyway?
Got it. Very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Beck. Question from Mark?
Yeah, a bit more on Barry's theme there about the groups.
Yes.
What's the thinking behind the groups? Are they based on their roles or are they based on geography? Are they to be based on the challenges they wish to address? Or like how's this going to play out in a practical sense, I suppose, when these groups are formed?
Yeah. So, Mark, at the moment, the groups have been looked at from a regional perspective, so regionally. There is also an opportunity to have an online group. So if there is not a group already placed or even in the next stage rollout, that if there's not a group in somebody's region, we're considering trialling an online version to bring people together still who may not have the capacity for a local group. So my suggestion would be having them regionally based, just because the different nuances, particularly from a grower's perspective, if there's more central hotter regions versus cool climate growing regions, the contrast would probably be too much, I would suggest. So I would probably keep them regionally. As far as whom would be the members of the group, strong suggestion is initially the decision makers who are in the business. So are they the people that can actually influence the decisions that are being made in those businesses when they go back? So if they are managers, 2ICs or owner operators, that would be the caliber of people I would suggest initially. But then as the group forms, there could be opportunities for others within the business group to step in, because there could be something that they're concentrating on that they want other staff or what have you. Again, that's completely at the discretion of the group. But my encouragement is definitely only people who are decision makers, because they're the only ones who can go back and actually have influence or impact. Okay.
And so how do you address that? 60 odd wine regions around the country.
Yes.
How do we address that challenge about duplication? So you've got one group on one side of the country doing the same as the other, and no one knows what's going on between the others. Have we got a nice structure where there's a bit of collaboration between the groups?
As part of the project, Mark, what will be happening is every year we have an annual forum. And so what that will do is actually will encourage all of those groups to actually come together to be able to share what they're doing, what they've been concentrating on, what are some of the areas, what some of the knowledge and skills they've been talking about. Additionally, the facilitators and the coordinators will be set up as their own peer-to-peer group, if you like. And so quarterly, we'll bring them together to actually talk about what have they been doing, what skills can we share, what subject matter experts can we share, ideas, etc. as well. So that's that collaboration piece on bringing that together. I think the thing is my encouragement would be, don't be scared on duplication, because in the end of the day, this group is still its own nucleus identity, and them actually doing their own thing is not a bad thing. That is actually okay. Then if we can take that and obviously share that amongst the group when we come together for forums and things like that, that's perfectly okay. Probably the thing for me, and I don't want to speak for Wine Australia, but if we're noticing that there are lots of different things that we're speaking about, that will actually get fed back into Wine Australia to say, hey, we've got 4 or 5 groups that are concentrating on a lot of things. Then that could feed to Wine Australia and them go, actually, we might have to do some other project work or some other things that the industry need based on that feedback. So we'll be very connected with those facilitators and coordinators, Mark, to keep abreast of some of those nuances that it might start to come out amongst the groups as well.
Yeah, you've nailed it there, Beck, from a Wine Australia perspective. A question from Thomas.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I can't turn on my camera. The internet's really shit tonight. I think you might have sort of touched on what I was going to ask, but I've got a dozen or so growers that would be interested in forming a bit of a brainstorming group, for lack of a better word. Do we have total freedom over what we choose to discuss and the direction we wish to go into, and the success, or defining what the success would be?
Yeah, yes, absolutely, Thomas. So that's the great benefit of these groups, is that they are completely led by what the producers want. All we do, or I do, is provide support for the actual facilitator to ensure that the day doesn't just become a mishmash of ideas going everywhere, but so that the facilitator has some structure to then take all that stuff that the growers together want to talk about and come up with a bit of a structured program for their group moving forward for the duration of the program. So absolutely, you have the flexibility to take it based on what the needs of individuals in that group want.
Question from Simon.
Yeah, hi. Simon Stratton. I'm the president of the Viticulture Society of the Canberra District. We, as a group, convened probably for the first time in a number of years last year and came up with an outline for a local industry strategy, I guess. And we've got some key sort of themes or working groups. Sustainability is one of them for SWA, accreditation, that sort of thing. Marketing, well, we've got a marketing association, the Canberra District Wine Industry Association. I guess in terms of researching what Wine Australia's been supporting and what's happening around the rest of the country, have you guys sort of done a bit of a stock take of what other sort of local or regional industry associations are actually focused on? I was really interested in what they're doing in WA with the Margaret River and some of the initiatives around sustainability that they've undertaken. So just the sort of learnings, and I guess, Mark and co, in terms of contributing, doing a bit of a stock take. I guess our sort of, the driver for why we sort of took the need, I guess, to reconvene was the one sector wine and grape strategy that came out, and a lot of the initiatives under that, including the audit, I guess, the National Vineyard Audit and that sort of thing. So being able to contribute to those sorts of projects that are happening nationally, but also reflecting what local priorities are, that's the sort of thing that I'm interested in learning from as part of a broader discussion group.
Want me to
So
answer
that's a
that?
question for you. Yes.
Yeah. It's fair to say that we're beginning to gather that information, Simon, and I'm happy to catch up with you outside of this session to explain more about it. But catching up with the regional program managers. So in the regional program, we have 10 regional partners that we catch up with on a regular basis, and we know what they are focusing on every year in the funding we provide them for their extension. And we certainly see some common themes coming through. And we're also doing more work in connecting those people together so that they can actually see what each other's doing and learning from each other and collaborating. So I'm happy to chat with you outside of this to explain how you might be able to get involved. But certainly from this program will not be happening in isolation as everything else. As the themes start coming through, we'll be looking to see, well, what else are other people doing and what are we doing in other initiatives or other programs which might be useful. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, but happy to touch base afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
Libby,
Oh, sorry.
Libby, how do you reckon this program could add a bit of value or leverage into the existing ones? I'm thinking about the regional program you just mentioned, and also thinking about the R&D strategy, as well. How do you see this sort of leaning into that?
I think with the regional program, the opportunity here is if you can get groups that are focusing on a topic or a strategy that is a priority to the region, then they are, if you like, creating a catalyst, and we can actually work with the region to plan other activities around it as part of the regional program, so that you've got this catalyst kind of in the middle, but then you've also got all this add-on activity going on round about, so it starts to build momentum within the region. So I think it helps to amplify what you want to do in the regions. That's my goal. And with regards to R&I, the key thing with the R&I strategy is we've got all this evidence-based information, whether it be technology or practices or innovation, that is just not getting out there. And this is one avenue, as is the regional program and the National Advisor Network, to actually start pushing information out that is evidence-based and it is the latest research. So as those themes start coming through and the facilitators are identifying subject matter experts and information they need, whether it be workbooks or resources or whatever, then what we'll be pushing out will also be pushing out the latest R&I that's relevant to what that group are learning about.
So Libby, can I just add some bit of context from a dairy perspective there as well? So the dairy within the dairy industry and through their dairy discussion group model, what that actually enabled is an identification that there were certain areas that we needed to bolster from both a research perspective and other programs. So as an example, 5-6 years ago, I guess, there was a bit of a discovery as we were having a lot of transitions in dairy business that the next cohort of producers that were coming through, there was a inequity of financial fundamentals and understanding. So that then triggered Dairy Australia to invest money into developing a farm business fundamentals and analysis project. So that then was rolled out all over Australia. Same thing was there was a bit of a lack of planning in farm businesses. We want to talk about, long-term, I don't like the word, but resilience as such in these farm businesses and long-term planning. That also, from feedback from the discussion group network, enabled a farm business planning project that's been rolled out all over Australia now. So these discussion groups are a really great way to bolster, but also then connect in with programs that are already existing that can be rolled out within regions, and those particular things that come in regions because of environmental factors, trade, what have you as well. So they can be actually a really powerful conduit from what's actually happening on the ground back to associations, organisations. So yeah, very, very powerful groups they can be. Oh, you're on mute, Libby.
Sorry, no more questions at this point. Thanks, Beck, if you want to keep going.
No worries. So what I'll do, because I'm very conscious, lovely Alice Marks has been sitting there for a little while, and I think it's a good opportunity for you guys to actually hear from a producer who's been involved in these groups. So Alice, thanks so much for jumping on. I will get you to unmute. Thanks, Alice. So even though Alice is a beef producer, I do know she is a good wine drinker, so there's some association there. So Alice, do you want to just give an introduction of yourself, where you're based, and what discussion group that you're involved in, please?
Yeah, sure thing. So my name's Alice Marks. I'm situated in central Queensland, where we farm beef cattle over about 10,000 hectares across 3 properties. The home base has been in my husband's family for 4 generations now. And we joined the NB2 pilot group, which is the Northern Beef breeding group that Beck referred to, back in 2001. It was sort of pitched at beef producers as a way of changing the way R&D is, I guess, from a top-down delivery to the producer, as a way of it becoming a bottom-up. So producers getting a chance to inform where R&D needed to be pointed, I guess. At the same time, there was also 3 pillars as part of this program, which was feed base, herd base, and then new business. And there was KPIs that we were all measuring. So lots of data collection in those early days, and I guess foundational training for us. Our group was the Burdekin group. We were geographically very diverse. So from the northern producers of our group up in the Burdekin, which is the sort of Charters Towers Air region, I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, down to the southern part of our group, which is Capella, Clermont, Springsure. There's 800 kilometres. So it's geographically very diverse. We're very different farming areas, I guess, different country, different pastures, different breeds of cattle, different markets, but we all had the industry in common. Our group's made up of 7 producer families. Some of us knew each other, but not very well. And I think that has become a strength in our group. I think the geography has actually been a strength. And I think just having the industry in common as our common link has also been a strength, because we've all had to keep a really open mind about where we take this group. We have to find a common ground or a subject matter to study, and then and then drive where we want to take it. The interesting thing with our group is, we're all trying to get these KPIs and tick off all this business development and business planning. But at the end of the day, it's actually been a lot of personal development. And that's what I think keeps the group together. We do a lot of communication training, I guess.
Thanks, Alice. Eloise, did you have a quick question? Did I see your hand raised there?
Yeah, thank you. I did. I mean, Alice essentially answered it. I was just thinking about that kind of the distance scenario, because WA is equally a very large, region, and our wine regions are quite, like spread apart. But it sounds like that was a benefit of bringing people from different regions, different climates, different things together to look at problems and find solutions.
Definitely. I would agree with that. I, of course, can't measure against if our group had have been just local, whether that would have been more beneficial. We also have an annual get-together that Beck was mentioning, where we do collaborate, and each group brings what they've been studying for the last 12 months, and we can learn from each other in that setting as well.
Alice, do you just want to touch on why for your group it's been important to have a facilitator and coordinator as well? I did see you smirk when I mentioned the importance of a facilitator.
Yeah, look, this is the most important thing about these groups is the facilitator. You have to have somebody that's good at communications, that's good at keeping the momentum going and the motivation going, but also who listens to the group and listens to what the producers actually want to learn and study and prioritise. Somebody touched on the value and the cost about having producers pay to belong to a group. That was a big deal at the start. I think we had to contribute $2,000 a business, and then that was leveraged against industry funds. We're on our own now, like we're out of the pilot phase and running our own show, essentially. We would all pay double that money. So we're now paying $2,500, but I think we all see value and would pay double that just to belong to this group. And the goal of the group isn't about those KPIs. It's about keeping that group together so we can keep learning, and for our future generations to keep learning and to belong to that group. So there's huge value in this group format, the peer-to-peer learning format.
Thanks, Alice. And so we'll cover once Alice is finished just around what the commitment is from a producer perspective. But Alice, you might be interested to know that grape growers don't have to pay to be part of the pilot for this. So I think they're really fortunate from that perspective that the levy funds are going towards supporting producers to be part of it, which I think is fantastic. Eloise, you've got another question there?
Yeah, sorry.
Don't be sorry.
I'm curious, as you just mentioned the next generation there, Alice, and I just was wondering if, like, this group and your involvement with each other has kind of trickled down, to influence that next generation and their interest in your industry, and to kind of, have that succession moving forward and the impact that it's had in that way. Because I think that's something that's really critical to our industry, is that piece as well.
Yeah, totally agree. Definitely. So our group's made up of different ages and stages, but we're all multi-generational families involved in the land. When we started, there was no NB2 babies. I think we're up to 10 babies within our group. So we're all doing this for those babies. And I think that's also why communication has become such a big thing, because that succession, you have to have communication skills within your family and your business to enable that. So yes, all the business success will come. It just comes because that's why you're there. But at the same time, you're putting in place very structured plans and shared visions and goals as well within your family business.
Thanks, Alice. One of the other questions that I've got for you, Alice, and then we will very soon let you go, is obviously not being part of a group, pretty new concept up there for you guys around the peer-to-peer groups. There were some that had been around, but it wasn't quite a common structure. What was the biggest thing for you that for you guys that went, yes, we do need to be part of this? What got you over the line to be part of a group?
Me personally, I'd done a lot of, sort of extra training, and I'd promised myself to keep an open mind. And I also was doing a lot of data collection in our business that I didn't really know how to analyse. And then R&D, I found that really hard trying to navigate what was happening within industry. And I just thought, well, all of these boxes might get ticked if I signed up. Which is what we did as a family. And yeah, I love that we've done that. It's been great.
Yeah, fantastic. So if there's any great growers that are on the call, and I'm not sure the different who is who on the call, but for either facilitators or great growers that are there, what would you be saying as to why be involved? What's your reason? What do you want them to know about why they should be involved in a program such as this?
It's definitely confidence building. It's the connection and collaboration. The network you get out of it is huge, not just within your group and your subject matter experts that you bring in, but also at those annual get-togethers. I did like before when we were talking about wine producers and growers, I had a light bulb moment, and I was thinking, well, really, we need to have beef producers and processors, a group like that. And I guess that's what does happen at the draft. You do make contact with the people who are part of your industry, but you don't rub shoulders with every day.
Great. Thanks, Alice. And I should point out the draft is our annual forum get together as part of that project. Yeah. So before Alice goes, does anybody have any other questions? Hopefully that just gives you a bit of a perspective from a producer who's been involved in the groups. Is there any questions from anybody? No? Great. Thanks so much, Alice, for your time. Really appreciate you coming on. You are welcome to go or welcome to stay for the next 10 minutes while we wrap up.
Thank you, Alice.
Beck, it's my pleasure. Thanks, Libby. Good luck, everybody. And I hope our beef group can come down and visit one of your wine groups and learn from each other one day.
That'd be awesome. Thanks, Alice.
Thank you.
Cheers. Great.
See ya.
Awesome. Well, hopefully that just gives you a little bit of an insight from a producer perspective, which I think is actually just quite important. And it's very still fresh for Alice and their group as well. So they haven't forgotten about what it was like coming together for the first time and things like that as well. So just a final thing I wanted to go through then was really just the journey of what the program looks like for you guys. So I'm just going to share again, which you probably did see in that picture that I already showed. So just you can see that, Libby. You just have to give me a thumbs up. Thanks. So at the base of that infographic that you see there is around a suggested guide on what that looks like. Now, this on this document looks linear. There is no way that this is linear, this journey over the next few years as people move into the peer group program. So the first thing is, the biggest thing is obviously getting producers part of it, or great growers producers and or great growers as part of your group. The next thing that we do once the groups are together, we bring the facilitators and the coordinators together and offer some training. So that's initial training that will be happening in July, start of July, I think, Libby, start of July. Just don't have the dates on me in front, but yes, start of July.
1st or 2nd.
Thank you. So we'll bring the facilitators, and hopefully the coordinators have been identified at that time, with some really good, robust training on how to run a group, how to pull your members together, the conversations that we have, because Peer-to-peer facilitator training is very, very different. Some of the concepts are similar to raw facilitation training, but running a peer-to-peer group is different as opposed to facilitating a workshop or conversations with growers. So I know some of you may have done facilitator training, but the peer-to-peer group training is quite different. Okay, so I would encourage everyone who's part of that from a facilitator or coordinator perspective to make sure that they make that a priority to come along to that training. Once the training is done, we then set everybody off to launch your groups and start to bring your groups together and really have that first meeting, which is around that goal setting. And again, we'll provide you some structure around that. And even though we provide you the structure and training around that, it's still about making it your own and your own identity and your own way of how you would deliver that as well. Post that, once you've started to establish some goals, and there's some ongoing support. So that support comes from facilitator support from both myself and Jeanette Long. What that will mean is we'll actually come out and visit your groups, be part of your group meetings. We'll offer some coaching. We'll talk about some things you've done really well. We may also talk about some things that we could see some improvement on. And then just a bit of self-discovery for yourself. What do you want to work on? What are the outcomes that you actually want as a facilitator or a coordinator? And then we can also help to support your group as well. Now, I just want to preface this because sometimes people get a little bit awkward about myself and Jeanette coming out to the groups. This is in no way a big brother is watching. It is actually purely for us to be there to support your group, support the conversations, and to the point where we actually like to be part of the discussions in the day. We don't want to be someone that sits in the corner and with a clipboard and looks like we're actually marking you, because that's not at all what it's about. It's about bolstering all of this experience for everybody, both members of the group, but also the facilitators and coordinators. As I noted, then once you start really getting some motivation and motions and runs on the board, you'll start be doing your farm works, your learnings. The groups will start having subject matter experts that will come in and delivering to the group. There'll be a whole bunch of experiences, depending on what your group goals are, is actually then what you go and do and how you spend the funds that have been allocated to your groups. Then obviously, like good group formation, we make sure that at the end there's a really good review period, that you've met the goals or hopefully moved towards some of the goals that you're wanting to achieve, and then what it looks like moving forward from a self-sufficient model, potentially beyond the pilot, and then what that looks like. Thomas, you've got a question, I can see. You'll have to unmute, Thomas.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Beck. Yeah,
Thanks.
Look, you mentioned subject matter experts.
Yes.
Is it up to the group to decide what subject matter expert they wish to engage?
Absolutely, Thomas. So as part of the structure, call it the fluidness of the structure, I guess you would say, is it's completely up to the group whom they would like to bring in as a subject matter expert. So you'll be, each group will be allocated a budget as part of the pilot anyway. Initially, there's a budget that's allocated per group, and then the funds can be spent based on what the group wants that to be spent on and whom the subject matter expert is. So as an example, if somebody decided to spend the whole budget on one subject matter expert at the start, which I would probably provide counsel on, that's not the best way to use the budgeting of funds, but each to their own, then you can all definitely do that. However, if you choose to actually spread that funding out, then you could do that as well. So, there's lots of great industry people, great industry subject matter experts. There's great people in other organisations that may actually provide some in-kind, advice to your groups and come and deliver to your groups. That's also perfectly okay, Thomas. So however that person comes about and comes into your group, in the end of the day, it's up to the group members to decide on whom that person is, to then marry against the goals of what that group has set. Stuart, question?
Yeah, sorry, two questions I'll sneak in. One for you, Beck, and the other one for Libby. Beck, in terms of what's your evaluation framework look like in this whole process? And Libby, the second question, when Beck's finished, what's the budget look like?
Yeah, great question, Stuart. So I'll cover off on the first one. So from an M&E or monitoring and evaluation perspective, so we'd encourage as part of that structure on each group get together that there's monitoring and evaluation that's done, and that is probably less formal than you've normally seen it, Stuart, I would say, but still highly effective to gain what we need to out of that. So that would be your own internal monitoring and evaluation that a facilitator would do. As the program manager for that, I would need to draw on that information because I've got milestones from a project management perspective that I then need to feed that back into Wine Australia just to be able to assess what the plans were and then what the outcomes are looking like. It's not necessarily to go, well, this is your KPI. You said you were going to do this and you didn't in fact do this. It's in no way of that. It's actually just to measure the transition of impact as such. The other thing that I do from a facilitator and coordinator perspective, we implement a coaching tool. So it's a self-assessment at the start of the program where after we've done the training, we get you guys, it's a bit of an accountability piece from a facilitator and coaching perspective on, right, we've got this training from our own perspective. What do we actually want to achieve over the next 2 years as well? So then it's your own professional development. And then as the coach and mentor, I can actually support that also for the duration of the program. Second to that, when I'm coming out to do the coaching or mentoring in the groups, I can make sure I'm also thinking about your own goals of what you're wanting to achieve as a facilitator or coordinator as well. And then I put some evaluation structure around that to, again, report that back to Wine Australia. Does that answer that question, Stuart?
Yeah, as well as it possibly can at the minute, I suspect.
Yeah.
No, well done, Beck.
Great. And Libby,
then
I'll let you touch on the budget piece.
I will do that, and then Thomas is after me with another question. So the budget is an interesting one, only because of the fact that it's a real hodgepodge of different funding organisations at the moment. I'm pulling in funding from all over the place and leveraging it to actually get this thing off the ground so that it's not all of Wine Australia's money, but we're getting as much Commonwealth funding and external funding in as we possibly can. The facilitators will be paid for. So at an hourly rate, and I'm just trying to finalise that, and it won't be, it probably won't be what they would normally be paid in terms of being an external advisor, but there's obviously a lot of benefits for them in terms of the training and the business contacts and all that kind of stuff, but looking at between $150 and $180 an hour. So just tinkering with that. And with regards to operational costs, we're looking at between around about $20,000. So that gives you plenty of money for bus trips and coming together and bringing in experts, etc. Yeah, and it's basic, and a lot of it's based on, you know, as Lucy explained, we want to get it to a point so that at the end of it, it's a manageable amount for people to pay. If you know there's like 10 businesses in a group, for example, then what's a manageable amount that they could afford? But I will be finalising out the next couple of weeks, just as all these various funding things drop, for want of a better way of putting it.
Thomas, you've got a question?
Yeah, look, just to specify, I'm not specifically after Libby. That's just a misconception. My question would be, what do you expect the impact of this would be on the industry?
This is for me. Okay. My vision, Thomas, is that it will help to get some momentum around adoption of practices that will make businesses more profitable and more sustainable. The reality is we have a huge challenge with adoption, and adoption of different ways of working. I'll call it innovation, but the reality is what's innovative for one business might not be innovative for another, but the reality is it's something that is going to help them. It's something that's going to help them be more profitable and actually to have a more profitable business going forwards. And the challenge at the moment is everything we've been trying kind of, we move the needle a little bit here and there, but we're not getting the if you like, the bigger impact and the bigger needle change that we're actually looking for. And what I'm hoping here is that by getting, you know, 8 to 10 businesses in these various regions actually really making some positive steps. And if you remember, the figure's about 80% adoption, and we're building in around them through the regional program and the advisor network, then we can actually start gaining momentum across the regions, and that itself will then help the businesses and then help the sector. And I realize that's quite a lofty vision, but that's what I'm hoping for, and it's certainly what I'm hearing from other sectors in how these discussion groups have helped. Does that answer your questions, Thomas? Or do you think I'm on the happy gas?
No, look, if we're not thriving for utopia, then we're not doing anything interesting in my book. So yeah, that answers my question.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay, Beck.
Great, thank you.
I'll let you keep going.
Yeah, so all I was going to just now go in, because I'm very conscious of people's time. We said we'd be finished by 7. So it was just in regards to the next steps. So from a next steps perspective, if people are already part of or have indicated being part of pilots or as a facilitator coordinator, there's an expressions of interest form that can be filled in and submitted. So we will make that available soon, which will be probably next week now, to be honest with you. So as participating in this, this call will be obviously available online to rewatch back and send out to anybody that you feel might be of interest. But there will be a expressions of interest form to fill in. And then if you've got any other questions, comments, etc., I'll share my contact details, or the team will, after tonight as well, so that you've got those available, and I'm more than happy for you to pick up the phone and have a conversation. And also, if just anybody is actually interested and wants to chew the fat, so to speak, a little bit around what they look like, how they operate, etc., more than happy to have a conversation with anybody. But I know now, having worked across multiple industries that have implemented this approach, the benefits far outweigh the downside well and long after the programs are actually finished. So, you know, I work with a dairy discussion group here in South Australia. It's been going for 60 years now. They just had their 60-year anniversary. So, and those guys, that's, you know, cross-generational, and for those businesses to still be there in different formats now, so to speak, but they can have some really long-term tangible impacts on those industries. So I'm a big believer in this model, obviously really passionate about it, but also there has to be some structure that's put around them to make them succeed. So that's all from me. Has anyone got any last-minute questions? Otherwise, we'll put together a little bit of a fact sheet as well, and some flyers as well, and be able to send that out. Now, there was a little chat question there. Excuse me.
Yeah, there's a question from Barry. Can we share by email some example outcomes from other similar programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So Barry, one of the, I'm just going to jump in there, Libby, probably the most successful and evaluated peer-to-peer program in the world is the Red Meat Profit Partnership that occurred in New Zealand. So I'll be able to actually send you that evaluation that was done as part of that project. And the New Zealand government have actually just reinvested something like close to $100 million in that project again. So highly successful there. And there's a lot of groups have actually continued on post the funding. So I'll actually send you that report, because then you can have a look at what the evaluation and the outcomes were based on that. Yes, different industry, but still really transferable knowledge that came from that project, and highly evaluated project as well that's used to set the industry standard around discussion groups.
Yeah.
So I'll send that out.
Mark has asked quite rightly whether or not we're being a bit optimistic with the ambitious. That's a nice word, Mark. Thank you for that. With the 1st and 2nd July, I think that the key thing to stress here is the 1st and 2nd of July is the facilitators. So even if you haven't got all of your all of the members of the group kind of corralled at that point in time, we can still do the facilitator training, and then they'll also get support. You know, they might only have 3 or 4 businesses at that point, but then we will help them, or Bet will help them gather the remaining troops after that point. And also you've asked about how many we're going to do. This is being guided a bit by this money that's dropping left, right and centre, and so is the location. So for example, I've got funding from the SA Drought Hub, which is helping to fund a couple in South Australia. There's other funding associated in other areas where different people are putting money in. So Beck and I'll be working together with people who are interested to try and land all those balls in the next 2 or 3 weeks to actually make sense of that. And we've also already got a list of advisors who did group facilitation training last year who've already put their hands up to be facilitators if there's someone in a group in their area who want to go ahead. So we are a little bit further down the track than it might appear tonight. Thanks, Mark. Okay. So if there's no further questions, I just want to say thank you. But I'm officially handing over to Beck, and you'll be in her capable hands. And but obviously feel free to reach out for me as well at any point in time. We're keen to get good diversity across the country and lots of different topics so that we can really use this 2 years. I know we're funding these 2-year pilot, so each one will have 2 years. We'll start some this year and some next year, but the whole purpose of that is to gather evidence to demonstrate to others that it's worth investing in. So that's the purpose of it, and that's why we're investing. So thank you very much. We will be in touch and very soon, in fact, next week. So I really appreciate your interest and hope to see you all involved at some point and in some capacity. So thank you.